Okay, what I want to do tonight is basically to do a little bit of an Apple update. What the hell's that? Oh, I'll leave it there. A little bit of an Apple update, because in 2022 there's a number of things that have happened, quite a large number actually of things that have happened in the Apple world, the Apple ecosystem, that I've been impressed with, that I've liked. Every year they do something. Usually they have something in June, July, and then something else in September. And most years it's kind of operating system updates, that kind of thing. But this year they've gone, I think, a bit further. And there's been some significant developments, and I'll go through some of them here. And I wanted to kind of break it down into I want to look at hardware, I want to look at software, and then I was kind of explaining about what I've been doing. I've been playing around with my radio stuff and doing stuff on the Mac in Windows, because I can't get my radio software to run on my Mac. So I've been looking at what options are there out there. So I wanted to show you something of what I've done there, and give you a bit of a live demo with some questions where you're getting a live demo already, because I'm using some of the new features of iOS 16 to make this presentation. So first of all, on the hardware side, there have been a number of things that have they've supercharged the MacBook Air. And there's a new iPad out now with the M1 chip. If you're not familiar with the M1 chip, it's basically Apple's own design. Although the iPad was using one of the A series chips, A14, 15, 16. It was using 16, which is the same chip that they use in the iPhone. They've now discovered, they put the MacBook, or the laptop chip, into the iPad Air. So the iPad Air Pro with the M1 chip is probably the most powerful iPad you can buy these days. And then they've also introduced the iPhone 14 series. It's now started to hit the market. It was released a month or two ago, and came into the stores. Supposed to be in the Apple Store last Friday. There are three. There's the iPhone 14, which came out earlier, but they've also got a Pro version, the iPhone Pro and the Pro Max. Now, the only difference between the Pro and the Pro Max is the size of the screen. So you've got kind of the normal size, like you've got here. That's kind of like the Pro. And then you've got the Max size, which is kind of like a giant thing. It's a cross between an iPad and an iPhone that you hold up to your ear. My son went ahead and got the iPhone 14. Some of the carriers actually had got the iPhone 14 Pro and the Pro Max, and so you could go through like AT&T or Verizon and actually get one a few weeks ago. But the unlocked version that went into the Apple Store only came out on Friday. I got one on order, which is unusual for me, because I got an SE2, which is only about a year old, a little over a year old. Normally I wait at least 2 years before I update, but I got so excited with what I saw in the iPhone Pro, that I decided to go ahead and buy one anyway. I'll put this up on the website, so these are basically Apple releases.
Are the Pro and the Pro Max the same?
They're identical except for the size of the screen.
Right.
The only difference is one is this big and one is this big.
Right.
Camera's different too, isn't it?
No, I think the cameras are the same.
There is a difference, I can't see the 12 girls.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same form factor as the 12 Max, the 14 Pro. Yeah. But
Paul, do you foresee Apple at some point adopting a flip screen?
Not anytime soon. I don't know that they'll ever adopt it. Not until Google or Samsung have got it going for like 2 or 3 years, then they'll come out with a better one. That's their usual process is
Right.
they kind of wait. There are some issues with the flip screen. I mean, it's a big change in hardware, and they're not wont to do something like that. At least not until they got everything else 100% stable. Their philosophy is very similar to Toyota's. You know, you change where you build it, you change who you build it with, or you change the design, but you don't change all three at once. You only change one at a time. So I don't see them going to that flip screen anytime soon.
Yeah, but Apple also has a habit of waiting to see what falls out,
Yes.
and then by the time they get in, they're behind the curve.
Well, not
Like
necessarily. They
well,
usually
You know, it's like they did
This-
with the HomePod.
no. But look at this one, the iPhone 14
I
Pro.
don't understand.
They will come in late, but they'll come in better. Usually they come in with something that's a whole lot better, has got a whole lot better features, and is solid. They're pretty conservative, actually. The other two to watch, excuse the pun, are the watch. I mean, this is a Series 7, I think. The Series 8 is out, which is kind of like the Series 7 with a few little gizmos. They've also come out with a Super Duper Ultra, which if you're 25 years old and you like to hike in the Rocky Mountains or
And
whatever,
throw money away.
you throw money away, yeah, you can go with that. You can. It's basically definitely a California watch. So, and it looks cool, and there's been good reports on it. So I'm not going to knock it. I just don't have the money to go out and buy one, and I don't have the need for it because I'm not into, at least at my age, most of us are not into that. So
I see those watches I was looking at when I went to the
yeah,
Apple store not long ago, and it seems like there's a big cost difference in the upgrade on some of the bands. What is so fancy about the bands?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I've got very simple band and I like it.
Yeah.
But some of them are kind of like designer bands, you know. And
Nike, the Nike watch comes with
yeah,
the Nike.
yeah, that kind of thing. So I don't know. I don't think there's anything special.
I didn't know if they had any special features.
No. Now, when you compare these two, yeah, this thing you can drop in God knows how much deep water and so on.
Hammer it.
Hammer it, yeah, run over it
But the
umpteen
band
times.
is not offering extra sensors
No,
or
no,
other
no,
technology?
there's no IoT devices in the band that I'm aware of anyway. The MacBook Air is interesting. They've basically taken this one. This was the first silicon MacBook device. This is a MacBook Air with the M1 chip, and is real good. I mean, I've had MacBooks before with Intel chips, but with the M1 chip is definitely a world apart. They've now put an M2 chip in here, and they've got a MacBook Air with an M2 and a MacBook Pro with an M2, which are kind of comparable. The only difference I can see is the MacBook Pro has this little bar across the top, which kind of is something that I don't like.
And fans.
Huh?
And fans.
Yeah.
More ports.
Huh?
More ports.
More ports. Yeah, it has a few more ports. But I mean, the older MacBooks only had one port. This one's got two USB-C ports, and they're full-speed USB-C, so they work great, and I connect my monitor to it, no problem. And with two ports, you can do a whole lot more. The only issues that I've seen with the new MacBooks that I was telling you is with the M2 chip, because it's a more powerful chip, the MacBook Air gets warmer. There's no fan in it. It relies totally on the fact that it's an aluminum case. So the aluminum is the heatsink for the chip. For the M2 chip, because it's more powerful, if you run it for longer, it's going to get hotter, and then basically the software is going to back down and basically degrade the M2 chip. So I wouldn't personally go with an M2 MacBook Air, but that's my opinion. I don't know, they may improve it. I'm not sure on the Pro, whether the Pro has the same issues, whether they've done anything different on the Pro, I don't know. But the one I don't have on here is the Mac Mini, which I kind of put in the same box as the MacBook Air because it's basically an M1 driven desktop type machine. And the Mac Mini, to me, the M1 Mac Mini I got at home is, I mean, it's amazing what it can do. I mean, and they're talking about an M2 chip. Maybe next week or the week after, they'll be releasing one with an M2 chip. And I think once they do that, the Mac Mini's got a fan in it, so it's going to outperform anything on the market. And to me, they're reasonably priced. They're not too expensive. The basic MacBook Mini is about $700 or something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, it's about $700, which is not bad for what you're getting. But we'll talk some more about that later. Okay, talk about software. Okay, let's do it this way. Okay, on the software side, basically there's basically two classes of software. One class is kind of broken down a little bit, and we'll explain that later. There's basically your desktop software and your device software, like the iPhone, iPad, iWatch, the TV, and the Apple whatever in your car. They're basically CarPlay. Yeah, they're all basically the same. They're a version of iOS or a derivative of iOS. Mac OS is a little different, although as you'll see from here, not a whole lot. They're kind of merging together a little bit. Ventura is basically, it's only in beta right now, and I've got beta running on here. I think they'll release the full version maybe within the next couple of weeks. Usually they do a release in October sometime, around mid to end of October. And when they do that, they'll release, I think, the Ventura. I've been using it since it was in beta several months ago, and it's working quite well. Basically, there are two pieces to it that I think are different. It's more or less the same as Monterey, with the exception of these two pieces. What they call Stage Manager and what they call Continuity Camera. Stage Manager, to me, is just a glorified Windows manager. It basically, you click the button and all the windows show up on the screen. It's like the old Microsoft Windows Manager, and you pick which one you want to see up front. But since I use Mission Control all the time, I don't see that it's going to benefit me. In fact, it doesn't benefit me. I don't use it. I use what's called Mission Control. Basically, when I do a control arrow, it takes me to my next screen. And if I go to up here, to the top here, you can see I've got all these basically displays open. What Stage Manager will allow you to do is to throw all those displays into one display and then pick one. So I'm not doing that. I've got to find the one. That's the one I want. So that's Stage Manager. The other one that I really like, and is why I put the Ventura on here, is what's called Continuity Camera. And what Continuity Camera does is basically it, if you're on the same Wi-Fi network as your camera or your iPad, or basically as your iPhone or your iPad that's got the camera, it will allow that iPhone to act as a webcam. Now, fortunately, because that's an iPhone SE, it only has one camera, and it's a pretty wide angle. So as you saw when I go to OBS over here, this is the camera over here. I can't remember whether I got the camera showing up, but yeah, I do. This is basically what you're seeing from that camera up there, and you can see it's a pretty wide angle. When it's up close to you, you can actually get a little doodah that they sell that you can clip on here and put your camera behind it. It looks kind of funky, but you can put it behind here. But then all of a sudden your face is kind of right up here like this. So I don't like it with that camera. Now, when I get my iPhone 14, which has got 3 cameras on it, I can play around with it, and you can do more with the camera. So that's basically what I've got there. Okay. So that's called continuity camera. You can see this picture down here. This is it's a third-party app that clips on there, so your cameras are kind of off to the right. But it's a hell of a lot better than this rinky-dink webcam that's on your computer. So you do end up with a first-class webcam on your computer.
That's 760, the new M2s have.
The new M2s have got a better. Well, I don't know how they
It's
compare.
1080.
It's 1080, is it? Yeah, this is the old one. The other side to the equation is the iOS. iOS 16, as released, it came out in full release last week, I think. I think it popped up on there last week or the week before. So a week or two ago, it's now on. If you got your iOS updated, you got iOS 16, and it has a few nifty features on there. On the lock screen, it allows you to do some things with the lock screen you couldn't do before. You could do on the Google Pixel and the Samsung cameras, but you couldn't do it on the iPhone. You can now put widgets on the lock screen. You could do all sorts of things like that.
Multiple ones of them.
You can have multiple ones of them. You can play with focus. Focus is basically allows you to flip the settings depending on what you're doing. So basically, what you could do is focus has been on iOS 15, but in iOS 15 you didn't have a whole lot of choices. You had a kind of a daytime mode, a nighttime mode, and an airplane mode or something like that. Now you can actually customize it, and you can have like a work mode, and if you're doing more than one work, you can have a work mode, a home mode, office mode, wife 1 mode, wife 2 mode, whatever. So you can customize it so that it's different settings depending on how you're working. I haven't played with it too much because it's just me, and I don't get a whole lot of benefit out of it. I can see if you're working and you've got a job and you use your iPhone on the job, and then you come home and you want to disconnect yourself from the job. Yeah, focus mode could be pretty good, pretty useful. There's some message interactions on the iMessage. There's a few more bits and bobs you could do.
Is Focus helping you manage across devices? So you said, like, you go home and you separate. And
No.
keep
This
your
is not
phone
managing
separate.
across devices. This is actual settings on your phone. So you can have different settings, like your calendar, for example. You can set focus mode up so when you're at work, you only see your work calendar.
Okay.
And you can set it up so when you click it to home, you only see your home calendar or your family calendar. So you can do things like that. But it's totally customizable.
So if you had 2 phone numbers for the same phone, you would turn off the
Yeah.
work phone number?
Yeah, those kind of things. That's what focus mode does. Message interaction is just I'm not too familiar with it, but basically you've got a few more bits and pieces you can play with in message. There are some.
You
I don't know
can
whether you.
pull back a message after you've sent it.
That's right. Yes, that was the one big one. Yeah. And then the one that I don't have on here is on your photos. You can actually annotate. Well, not annotate them. You can put little boxes on, and you can connect it to
Dictation is a lot better.
dictations. Yeah. The final one I've got in parentheses because I think it's a bit of a gizmo.
Are you
Yes.
able to pull messages back, or you just delay sending them?
Both.
If you've already sent it, you can pull it back
Yeah.
within 10 minutes or
Within a
something
certain
like that.
period of time. Yeah.
I know that I set it up for like a 20-second delay or something, but you're actually talking pulling it
You
back.
actually can pull it
You
back.
can delete it
Yeah.
after you send it.
Yeah.
So you can be looking at it, and I can delete it off your
No,
screen?
no. If it's been opened, I don't think you can do it.
I'm not
If
sure.
it's not been opened, actually it's not sent. They basically delay it on their server.
it's
So it
delay.
doesn't actually go out. They put a little delay in there, and then if you hit it during that delay time, you can pull it back.
Right, and you can, in mail, you can schedule an email to be sent at a
Yeah.
certain time.
Yeah. So there's a few things you can do there. The other one is more of a toy, is crash detection, and some of the YouTubers have tried it, but I'm not going to try it. But basically what it does is it allows you to send a message to the emergency service if you're in an accident. Yeah,
Had a deal on the news tonight about people that had that on some of their phones,
yeah,
riding on the roller coasters.
Yeah.
They would set it off.
yeah, I've heard of that, one. So you can turn it off.
So it works.
It works, yeah, it kind of sort of works. Works too well. Anyway, and you'll see most of those features in iOS 16 are they'll be migrating from the phone to the watch, to the iPad. So that kind of will roll out. Now, also tonight, I wanted to hit a little bit on virtualization. This is a little bit of a technical subject, but it was something that I spent a lot of time on last month because, as you know, I'm a radio operator, and most of the radio software is Windows driven. Most of it, to be honest, is not that good, but there's a couple of software packages that are radio packages that I really like that only run on a Windows platform. So what do? So what I decided to do was to see how virtualization worked on the M1 Mac, because on the older Macs, I've tried Parallels and I've tried other virtualization software like VirtualBox and stuff like that, and VMware Fusion, and they're kind of clunky and they're slow and they're not really something you want to use on a daily basis.
You talking about like Publisher?
No. This allows you to run Windows software on a Mac, and it
The
basically
operating system.
the Mac operating system, and the virtualization software actually simulates the operating system environment, not only Windows. It can be Linux, can be whatever. It allows you to simulate that and use the basic hardware or the basic software, the operating system software of the Mac, and then put Windows on top of it. So emulation is a little bit different. Emulation goes a step further. And emulation basically emulates the base software over the Mac software. So there's two steps involved. You've got the Mac software, then the emulator communicates with it, but it then adds another layer. So it tends to be a lot slower. But there's two packages that I discovered that actually work and work quite well on the Mac M1. One of them is Parallels, and one of them is UTM. VMware Fusion works, but it's nowhere near in the same class as Parallels. So I just ignored it. Oracle basically decided they didn't want anything to do with the M1 hardware, I should say. So they don't even make a VirtualBox that runs on an M1 Mac with Apple Silicon. They got one that runs with the Intel Macs, but not with the M1 Mac. So you're down to Parallels and UTM. Parallels is by far the best, but you have to buy a license. And there's a few little quirks with that license, as I've come to discover, and I'll show you in a minute. It costs around $99. You may be able to get it cheaper. It's $99 without any upgrades. So if you want to upgrade it, you've got to get an upgrade in a year or two. Or you can pay $120 or something like that, and you can get an unlimited upgrade. So I don't want to spend over $100 on a piece of software that I'm hardly ever using. So I've actually opted to go with a lower price version. And I already had it on here anyway, an older version, so I just needed to do an upgrade, and that was like $70, something like that. The other one is UTM. UTM is interesting because it's based on the open source virtualization software called QEMU, which is basically a Linux-based virtualization software. You can run it natively on here, but you have to run it at a command line. It's kind of clunky, difficult. UTM came along and put a nice GUI in front of it, a graphic interface in front of it. So, and I can show you these now. I'll show you, first of all, let me see where I am. First of all, you can see what it says here. License on your Mac has been deactivated. Oh, the other quirk on here is with Parallels. If you've got two Macs, like I do, I've got a Mac Mini and a MacBook, I can't run two versions of Parallels without buying another license. But I can flip the license backwards and forwards. So I can come on here and I can basically, to put my glasses on, I can't see what I'm doing. I can sign in. And I can basically go down to my notes. If you haven't discovered notes, notes are wonderful. And I can look for Parallels. It's right at the top there. So I can activate it on this Mac. So basically what I've done is I've moved my license key from my Mac Mini over to my MacBook. Now I can run Mac, and you can actually go, I can go File, New, and I come over here, and I can get Windows 11. And I can install Windows. And I'll go ahead and run it, because it doesn't actually, well, it's going to do the downloads. It may take a bit.
Are you running UTM or Parallel?
This is Parallels. This is Parallels. I like Parallels is a lot more friendly, but you have to pay for it. And I'll show you UTM after I've shown you Parallels. Well, I won't go through there, because basically it goes through a standard Windows 11 install. You end up with Windows 11 on there.
Oh, there are features in one versus the other that you prefer?
What do you mean? UTM versus Parallels? Parallels is just a little bit easier to use. At least I find it a bit easier to use. It's more intuitive. So, I mean, I'll show you Ubuntu, because I can run Ubuntu. I can just fire up Ubuntu on here. And this fires up into Parallels. And if you're familiar with Linux, it's running through the Ubuntu startup. And I've got Ubuntu's running on there. Okay. I can come down here. I think that's the right password. Yep. So I've got an Ubuntu's desktop. So I'm running Ubuntu's on here. And it's a little bit slower than running on running it on bare steel, but not that much slower. Not that you notice it. If you're just doing, basic browsing or whatever, and some simple operations, is not too bad. And I still have access to my Mac. I still got my Mac over here, using my my mission control. So that's Ubuntu. Now I've got to close the damn thing. Try and remember how to power off, log out. Power off. Oh shoot! Cancel that. I hit the wrong one.
What kind of software are you running under Parallel that you can't run under Mac?
Ubuntu operating system right now. That's the only one I'm running.
Which one?
This is Ubuntu. It's Linux. It's a Linux.
Okay.
It's basically like having a Linux computer on your Mac.
The Windows versions of Office are better than the
Yes.
Apple version.
Yes.
Well, that's the only way I've been able to
Yes.
get Publisher to run, is to run Parallel.
Well, you can run Parallels with. You can run Windows and then run Publisher
That's
on
the only way
Windows,
I've been able to get
or you can
run
run
on my
Quicken
Mac
on Windows. There's a few things on Windows that run better on the Mac. And with the new version of Parallels on an M1 Mac, it's not that bad. Oh, I do have it down there. Actually, it's running Windows 10. Okay. So this is basically UTM. They put that message on there. If you're not running Windows 11, you can get that message all the time. This is Windows 10 running under UTM. So you can run your Microsoft software on here very well. And basically, if I shut this down, I'll show you what I end up with when I do a shutdown, power, shut down anyway. Looks like Windows, right? It looks like Windows. Hopefully it works, doesn't crash. I want to run UTM. So I download and install the software, and you can go to the website and download it. It's easy to find. And then basically you've got the option to run Windows 10, which is the one that I just showed you, or you can create a new virtual machine. So you can come in here. And this one will allow you to emulate or virtualize. So UTM, basically you can actually emulate the CPU architecture in the software, or you can use the Apple M1 CPU architecture and just virtualize it. And it basically, off the top, you can run Windows, and this will give you Windows 11, I think. Select a boot image. Oh, you have to go and get one. So in this one, you have to basically go and find yourself an image file. So it's a little bit more clunky than Parallels, but once you get there, you can see I'm running Windows 10 fine. And it's free, so you don't have to pay for the Parallels license. So in the woodwork, go with UTM. Figure it out. Go look at some YouTube videos on how to install and run UTM. UTM has come a long way. I was quite impressed with it.
Can you store local Windows files, or is everything on one source?
No, this is where on UTM basically there is a difference, I should say, between UTM and Parallels in terms of file storage. UTM is within a box, but you can specify a shared area.
Okay.
So basically, if I look at look in here, I've got one called shared. That I share with my UTM Windows 10. So anything I put in there, I can move from my Mac to my Windows 10. So you can move stuff around. Parallels is a little bit more powerful, actually. Parallels opens up the whole hard drive. So in Parallels, I didn't finish Windows 11, but if you run Windows 11 in Parallels, when you first fire it up, it's got all your desktop on there that you see here. Everything on here is on my Parallels desktop. It actually puts files into my Parallels area. Now the problem with that, which I discovered when I was trying to do some of my radios, is that sometimes it puts the software where the software doesn't expect it to be, because it puts it in a Mac directory. And you don't want it to go in a Mac directory, you want it to go in a Parallels directory. So
overlapping addressing?
yes, it's just different. It is kind of overlapping addressing, and to some extent it's a native software issue. To some extent it's a Parallels issue. But basically Parallels, unless you're watching it, it doesn't give you the option. Or it gives you the option, but you've got to catch it when you install it. So basically what I have to do is when you're installing software on your Windows in Parallels, you have to be careful where it's installing stuff. if it's got a / back in front of it, you want to change that, get out of there and get into the parallel side. So it's storing it into the parallels world and not in the Mac world. And then everything is fine, everything behaves itself. But it can be messy.
So if you had a Microsoft Office license, you'd be able to do everything you can do there?
Yes,
One source and everything?
yes,
Okay.
everything. And it works very well. The only downside I found is that if you've got the devices start to be a problem, and this is where I ran into problems with my radio, is if you got devices connected using a COM to USB interface, they don't necessarily show up in Parallels Windows 11 as a COM port. So you have to add the COM port. And that can be messy, to say the least. And sometimes it doesn't work if you've got multiples involved. And I had all sorts of issues. So that's where I blew up, and I told you I put Windows on my server. So I've actually got a Windows box at home now that I use just for radio work. And on that, the other thing is multiple screens. I'm not sure you can, with my Apple, I can do mission control and I can do multiple whatnots. With Windows on here, it's not so easy. And multiple screens, I haven't tried, but I'm not sure you can get multiple screens without running into a problem. So if you're used to working with multiple screens on your Windows machine, I wouldn't jump over to here and try and do it in parallels. You might run into some problems. I'd just stay with the Windows machine. So, but if it's fairly straightforward, and you're just using Quicken or something like that, that's the only piece of software that you can't get to run on the Mac. Great, go ahead, run for it. I think that's my. Where am I? I didn't talk about bare metal. What I mean by bare metal, are anyone familiar with Boot Camp? The old Boot Camp runs on the Intels. It doesn't run on the M1 Mac, because what Boot Camp does is actually it slices a piece of the hardware up and allows you to use native software on that piece of hardware. Well, if the native software doesn't recognize that M1 Mac, you're shit out of luck. I mean, you can't make it work. on the Intel Macs, you can actually use Boot Camp and run Windows on its own little partition of the hard drive. So if you had a big enough hard drive, you could run Windows. Totally bare metal. You can't do that with the M1 Mac. There is an Arch Linux that's in kind of beta, I'd say. I've tried it, it works. That runs on the Mac called, I forgot what it's called now. It's got a Chinese name, like Archie Linux. It's called Archie Linux. And that you can actually get an ARM version of that will boot up on the Mac, and you can actually partition the Mac like you can on Boot Camp and get Arch Linux running on here. I tried it and it does work, but it's not. There are some pieces of it that don't work, like the ports and stuff like that are not working very well. So I gave up on it, but I did try it out and it does work. And I think that's coming, and maybe Apple will come out with Boot Camp that'll solve all of that and run it on M1. But anyway, that's something for the future. Demo, I pretty much showed you everything as we got along. Any other questions? No?
How recent did the iPad Air go to the M1 chip? Like mine, maybe a year
August,
and a half
was it?
old.
August?
Yes, it was probably.
I think it was before that. I think it was like the spring,
Was it
like March time
March?
frame.
Yeah.
Okay, so if
early.
mine's like a year and a half old, it's not an M1.
No.
No, it's going to be the
It was this year.
it's A14, 15 series. The original iPad Pro, it went to the A14, and the one I have is the A14. And then they put an A15 in it. I think they've got an A16 in it now.
The iPad Pro,
Yeah,
it's an M1.
no, the previous version.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the new one's definitely the M1, but the previous
iPad
version
Pro
is.
M1s came out like a year and a half ago, something
Yeah,
like that.
it was either A15 or A16, which is pretty heavy processor. That thing there's got an A15 or 16 in it. Your iPhone. That's got an A15 chip in it. Your iPhone. No, your iPhone.
this one right here.
On the right there. iPhone 12. Yeah, I think that's an A15 chip in that one.
And
It's
you
pretty-
like the M1 MacBook, even though it doesn't have a fan?
Right.
You say it's more powerful
Yeah.
than my M2 with the fan?
No. Oh, you've got an M2 with a fan?
It's, 3 weeks old.
Yeah, if you've got an M2 with a fan, it's a Pro. It's not an Air. This one's an Air.
Yeah, right.
M2 with the fan's fine. It's the Air, the one that doesn't have the fan. They put an M2 chip in there, and I think that was a mistake.
Yeah, that's why I wanted the fan, because I didn't want it over.
If you've got an M2 Pro with the fan, then
Yeah,
that's
it is.
state of the art. I mean, that's
The Max is state of the art.
huh?
The Max chip.
Yeah, the
is-
Max chip is even, yeah, but they're paying for that. Yeah. That one's a, what is it, four core, 8 thread? M2.
Maybe 8.
It's 8 and 8, I think.
Is it 8 and 8?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's half of my Mac Pro.
Yeah.
They've got to get better at naming stuff.
I know.
My Mac Pro, which is the one with this big screen, and it's got 16 cores.
But that thing will definitely handle, if you want to go to YouTube, look up UTM, I put UTM on there, and then get a copy of Windows 11. If you don't have a license for Windows 11, you can pick them up for like 20 or 30 bucks, a one-time license. You can
UTM.
get a legal license for like,
Really?
yeah, from King something or other. I can't remember where I got mine from. But it's a one-time license. Once you use it, that's it. It's gone.
But you can't get updates.
No.
That's-
Oh no, excuse me. You can get updates. Yeah, you can't get updates to Parallels. Parallels is the one that you have a problem with updates. Parallels pricing is I don't like it at all. I mean, it's just really funky. What Parallels has done. Let me see. Parallels. New license. Parallels cost you $99. Now, if you've already got Parallels, you can get an upgrade. And I think the upgrade is. Come on.
But that $99 is just for that year, right?
Yes, there it is. That's $69.99 is the. Well, actually, they got a sale
From
on.
the same price?
$69.99. They've got a Pro edition, which is the upgradable version. I think that's $69.99. Oh no, $69.99 per year.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to do that, it's fine. Otherwise, $69.99 gets you the latest Parallels, and then you either get a new one next year, or you don't. But if you don't want to go down that route, UTM works very well. You go to the UTM website, download it. I found it very easy to use. I was thinking it'd be like QEMU and you'd have to use command prompts and so on, but no, you don't. They put a good GUI in front of it, and it runs out of the box very well. If you want it just to run Quicken or whatever it is you use on there, it worked fine.
So I've got Parallel on my Mac Pro,
Yeah,
sits on my desk, and I could just upgrade that parallel.
you
and
can
run it
upgrade that
online.
parallels, yeah, but then you get the problem I just ran into. It's a single license.
Right, but you only use one at a time.
You can only use one at a time, and you can transfer the code across if you don't. If
And
you,
your Mac Pro is an Intel based.
Yeah, it is.
oh, it should work. It should work. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can upgrade it because that's what I had on here. Was an Intel based parallels, and I just upgraded it $69.99. But once I hit $100, it kind of, you know. So anyway, that's what I want to talk about tonight. That was it. Any more? Thank you. Hopefully I've got it recorded. That was some of the demo. Let's see, stop the recording. Then I'll play around with that in post and